What is going on, everybody? Welcome into MLB Swing for the Fences here on Sunday morning, day 4 of the young MLB season. You guys know me, I'm Draft Cheat, joined today by the one and only Third and Schlong. Bryce, how you doing on this Sunday morning?
I'm wonderful up here at my friend's lake house. Come every year for March Madness, at least one of the weekends. So just been watching basketball, having fun, playing all the baseball slates, kind of, grinding away at the start of the season. But, first Sunday show feels good, ready to hit some winners today.
Yeah, Sunday morning feels like NFL, but of course we're in baseball season now. And yeah, it's like you said, it's a long baseball season. We'll be here all year, you and I, on Sunday morning, or at least most of them. Somebody will be in any case. And yeah, back to the grind. I know it's been a modest start, at least for me. It sounds like you're kind of the same way. No big scores yet. You've had plenty of big scores recently in other sports, though, Bryce. So no tears for Third and Schlong over there. But we'll look to get to the winner's circle today. We do have, a 9 or 10 game slate, I think, on both sites. So always fun to get it going bright and early here on Sunday morning. Yeah, 10 games over on DraftKings. Feel free, if you're in the chat, throw in questions, comments. We'll try to get to some of those, and we'll try to get to the winners. With that, let's jump into these first games of the day. We'll go by the DraftKings order of games as we typically do, and we'll start out with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Washington Nationals. We have seen some weather shifts today, Bryce. Yankee Stadium in particular going to play different than it did yesterday when the Yankees started off. But they hit like 8 or 9 home runs. The first 3 pitches they sent over the fence, I did not have the Yankees. So it was a pretty quick early slate for me yesterday. But I do mention the weather because it's going to be good here in Washington, D.C. We've got 75, 80 degrees, some humidity, and some pretty strong winds blowing, it looks like, straight out to center field. So the ball should be flying in Nationals Park today for the Phillies and the Nationals. Aaron Nola going for the Phillies, and then Mitchell Parker, lefty, going for the Nationals. The Fat Bats. We'll get to the Yankees and the Fat Bats. It is kind of crazy. We'll get there when we get to the Yankees game in actually next. But first, Bryce, let's talk about Parker, Nola, Phillies, Nationals. What do you see in here? I think a pretty interesting game to kick off this slate.
I think the Phillies are some of the best plays on the slate. You talked about the weather shift. I was on the Phillies yesterday. Did okay, but like compared to the Yankees, no one was really getting there. I think Mitchell Parker's a decent guy to target. I do wish Trey was in the lineup. He got scratched before the game yesterday, but so that does hurt them, like their overall lineup strength a bit. Like it seems like a very top heavy lineup to me. But I like the Phillies in general. I think they're going to be one of my highest owned stacks today. And I always like playing Schwarber and Harper against lefties as part of the stacks. Because if you're getting to Parker, you're getting to the bullpen too. So it's not like they're going to be facing lefties all game. But I really like the top 4 as a stack here, and then kind of toss in a 5th if you want. Would be my preferred stack. On the other side of the game, and I don't really want anything to do with Parker or pitcher. Nola, I have some interest in, but his K prop is not that good today. You're pitching him more, I think, for volume here, and it's a pretty good hitting weather game. I do prefer other pitchers to Nola here. I'm not like Xing him out or anything, but there are guys I prefer to him at the top end of the spectrum. The Nationals as a stack are very cheap outside of CJ Abrams and James Wood, who are obviously the guys you would want, but I do think they're viable as a stack today. I would prefer them probably more as 3-mans to 5-mans. But I think they're pretty viable as like a 1 or 2% owned option against Nola here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. A couple notes from me. Mitchell Parker, we did see him for a decent amount of innings, or we have over these last couple of years. He's been, again, I don't know if this will hold true for sure, but really effective against lefties. 261 xWOBA allowed over 35 innings in the sample. Almost no power given up. So I don't have a problem with Bryce and Schwarber. I do agree with your general point that those guys are generally pretty good plays against lefties. Both of them can hit lefties fine. They've got power. And like you said, they're not going to face Mitchell Parker for more than probably, 4 or 5 innings at most, I would think, with Parker, assuming things go as planned. So I don't mind those guys. I just don't love the matchup to start, at least, against Parker. I do really like Bohm and Castellanos in particular. If you need some savings, I think Sosa's fine there, replacing Trey Turner at 2,900. And then even the switch hitting catcher who will be in there for JT Realmuto, hitting ninth, but Rafael Marchand, decent bat. I think he's okay at 3K, especially if you're, stacking the top of the Phillies lineup. Maybe you get the old wraparound stack there. But Bohm, Castellanos in particular, my 2 favorite bats on the Phillies. And then I guess I'll maybe disagree with you slightly. I like the Nationals quite a bit here. Nola's a good pitcher, of course, but by no means a pitcher that you can't play hitters against, particularly left-handed bats. You can run on him a little bit, especially with the young catcher and not JT Realmuto behind the plate. Nationals, we know we're going to steal bases, especially the guys you want, right? At the top of the lineup, Abrams and Wood are going to steal a lot of bases this year. Luis Garcia hitting third, a good hitter, swinging from the left side. He's only 3,200. And then a player that I think is going to be in for a big breakout season is Keibert Ruiz, up to the cleanup spot at 3,100, switch hitting catcher for the Nationals. Has a couple home runs early in the season. Last year, he had I think a bad illness to start and lost a bunch of weight, kind of similar to the Mookie Betts thing. Of course, Betts hasn't affected him, but I do think Ruiz, promising talent who had a disappointing year last year, off to a great start. I think he is a fun play at 3,100 out of the cleanup spot. And then you can go down to either first baseman, right? Nathaniel Lowe or Josh Bell, both in that low 3K range. So this Nationals lineup looks sneaky to me. I think they're going to steal bases if they get a chance. They've got power. The hitting weather is good. They're going to be low owned and just some high upside bats in general. So I'm pretty high on the Nationals today, playing 3 lineups on both DraftKings and FanDuel myself. At least one, and probably one on each side, is going to be a full National stack. So I do like them as a sneaky option. Even the bats at the bottom of the order are pretty cheap. So good first game to kick us off. I do think we're going to see runs in this one. Phillies and Nationals really from both sides. I'm not on Mitchell Parker for sure. Nola, I think, is an okay play, but I'm with you, Bryce. I think there are better options on this slate. So that's Phillies and the Nationals game. I do like for offense quite a bit to kick us off. Sounds like you like the Phillies side a little bit better, which I totally understand. I do think they'll be the more popular side of the two. Let's get to the next game, and we get to, what'd you call them? The torpedo bats? I hadn't actually seen that. Is that what they're called?
I think that's how I was seen on Twitter today, is what they've been dubbed after yesterday.
Sure, that works. Torpedo bats. For those that didn't see it, the Yankees have, I don't think it's all of their players, but for sure Jazz Chisholm had one, and I think they mentioned Anthony Volpe had one as well. I'm guessing some other guys do as well. Need to double check on that. But basically, they tried to move. They manufactured new bats, and they tried to move more of the wood of the bat toward, I believe, individually on where the players, most often, or at least more often compared to other hitters, hit the ball, right? So it sounded like for Volpe that they moved the wood down the barrel a little bit toward the label, and then I think you can kind of see they tapered it off at the end, right? So if a player like Jazz, they're finding that they're not hitting any baseballs at off the end of the bat, you don't need any wood there because you're not making a lot of contact. So we'll see how much it really affects things. Obviously they had the monster day yesterday. I mean, part of that was Nestor Cortez was throwing 88-mile-per-hour meatballs right down the pipe, and they were just nuking, and the weather in Yankee Stadium was great. I was very careful with my words, AP, on talking about the bad and the wood and moving it around. Don't want to get clipped here, for future X jokes. But anyway, Yankees, they're a team to watch, especially with these new bats. I mean, we have seen, teams fiddling with the shape of the bats, like the axe handles we've seen over the last couple of years, the knobless stuff some players have used. So no surprise that the Yankees trying to, get an advantage. And if it works, I'm sure we'll see other teams follow suit probably pretty quickly would be my guess. But anyway, for this game, we've got Stroman and Savali, two mediocre right-handed pitchers. We do have the big weather shift, though. It was like 70 degrees, 70 plus degrees, winds blowing out yesterday. Now we're down to 50 and some modest winds blowing in. So a big park shift for Yankee Stadium. Doesn't mean there won't be runs here, though. Stroman and Savali, like I said, really not very impressive pitchers. I'm more on the Yankees side of this game, just how well they're swinging it, coming out, the new bats, all that stuff. Curious where you ended up, Bryce, on Yankees and Brewers.
Definitely under this game compared to what I was yesterday. I think a lot of people will end up chasing the Yankees here after that big game. Could lead to some inflated ownership.
And the hype on the bats too, right? I could see people kind of buying into that.
I think Judge was the only one that didn't use one. He was like, asked why, and he's like, well, my numbers last year speak for themselves, and we hit 3 home runs yesterday, so
I think he's good to go.
Can't really argue with that. In general, these are not pitchers that I play. I'm not going to really be on either much. Like, I'd be surprised if I was over 5% on either pitcher. They're also not really pitchers I love to attack. I think, a lot of it yesterday was the weather in Yankee Stadium. That was, pretty much the stone nut weather, and today's literally the exact opposite. You've seen a decent amount of money come in on the under here. So likely going to be under on bats here. If I was choosing a side, it's going to be the Yankees. Don't think I'm going to end up with hardly any Brewers. Stroman in the Yankees pen is not something I really want to go after. And then on the Yankees side, it's hard to fade Judge. I kind of prefer these guys as like one-offs. It's still Yankee Stadium. You can still hit home runs. But in general, I'm likely going to be under on their bats as a whole and just this game as a whole.
Yeah, it makes subtle sense to me. Kind of fading the public a little bit. All the Yankees got the hype behind them. The Yankees are probably in general, just speaking over the course of the season, a little bit overowned, just because they're the Yankees. And then after a big day, would make sense for people to go back to them. I still do like the Yankees here. Savali, not a pitcher to avoid for me. Milwaukee bullpen, no surprise, pretty worn out after these 2 games against the Yankees. So I do think the Yankees could do some damage despite not having the weather advantage that they had yesterday. Judge, of course, leads the way. He's always going to be a good play, right? When he's healthy and swinging the bat the way he can, obviously can break the slate. And I do like some of cheap pitchers today. We'll get to those guys, of course, as we go along, which does allow me, if I want to pay up for the Judges, Bellingers, Jazz, Chisholms of the world. And I do like those guys quite a bit. But you can use them as one-offs too, like you mentioned. I'm with you, Bryce, on the Brewers. Not a team that I think I'm going to get to today, despite Stroman, just one of those guys, right? You never really play him, or at least I don't. But you don't love playing hitters against him either. So not really on the Brewers. Certainly not playing Stroman or Savali, though. They're near the bottom for me in terms of what I expect point per dollar wise. Not interested really in either pitcher. Neither guy going to make either of my teams today. So we'll move on from the Yankees and the Brewers. Sounds like the Yankees bats, at least from where I'm sitting, are the way to approach that game. Let's get to Baltimore and Toronto. This one in Toronto, we've got Chris Bassett pitching for Toronto, longtime veteran, coming off a rough season. I do expect something of a bounce back from him, but certainly a pitcher you could target against with the Orioles bats. And then we've got making his MLB debut, Tomoyuki Sugano over from Japan. I don't think he's going to be all that great, Schlong, but, obviously not a ton of data on him quite yet. Does throw from the right side, and I don't know. We've seen some of these guys. We saw it from Sasaki with the Dodgers. He hasn't looked great. It's tough to come over to, a whole new country and making your MLB debut. A lot can go wrong, right? Even if you are a good pitcher, and if you're kind of pedestrian, which I think is what Sagano's going to end up being. Kind of a tough landing spot here against the Blue Jays team that can do some damage. So I like Toronto here. I'm curious where you ended up on them. And then, yeah, Baltimore, I think, in play as well. Not in love with either of these pitchers by any means. Where do you stand, Bryce, on Blue Jays and Orioles here?
Blue Jays are one of my favorite stacks today. Not everyone can be like Yamamoto or like the elite pitchers coming over. You see like these guys have so much success that now like they're going deeper into the Japanese pitching pool.
Yamamoto is like the cream of the crop in Japan, right? Sagano's
so now you see like them getting like, instead of like the S tier pitchers, you're getting like, the B plus pitchers or like it. I just don't think he's as good as these other guys. And, he's going to make me pay to see it. I'm not playing any of them. I should be well over on the Blue Jays today. I like the whole team. Don't really know much about his splits or stuff like that, but I'm fine playing guys from both sides of the plate here. It's not like the Blue Jays break the bank on either site, so I think they're a pretty affordable stack. They fit with a lot of builds. I do think it's slightly top heavy lineup, kind of like the Phillies lineup. Like I really want to play like the top 5 and then like the bottom 4, just kind of throw in with your stacks, but I would prioritize the top of the lineup here. Baltimore against Bassett. I mean, Bassett is not a guy I love to play. He's not also someone I normally X out, but Orioles are no easy out this year. They're a really good baseball team. And, you saw them put up a decent amount of runs and not an offense I want to attack here. I would, talk more about their team, but they don't have a lineup out yet. I'm assuming it's just going to be like their normal guys in against a righty. Like I'm not expecting like Adley to sit or anything like that. They're not that expensive either. I should be over on the Orioles as well, and probably under Bassett. So over bats in this game, under pitchers. We'll get to some pitchers that we like here soon, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And we have the same approach to this game. Looks like a good place for bats. Bassett really struggled against lefties last year. 380 xWOBA allowed, which about as bad as you're going to see for a pitcher who threw 82 innings against lefties last season. Again, no lineup for the Orioles that I've seen, but Cowser, Rushman, Jackson Holliday, I think is a fun play. He's off to a little nice start, home run. Cedric Mullins is still cheap. So yeah, I'm in on the Orioles against Bassett, and especially the Blue Jays against Sagano. People talking about Sagano's ownership sub 1%. That might be true. I also have Sagano, and so does our guy Captain, who does the projections for RPS that are really strong with pitchers, as the worst point per dollar pitcher on the entire slate. So despite the low ownership, I think it's deserved, and not going to play Sagano. The Blue Jays look pretty good to me. Do we know ownership on the Blue Jays? I assume it'll be relatively.
I assume it'll be modest. Coming, 10% on a 10-game slate. Like anything double digits, I would consider high. I think they'll come in like after the Phillies, probably right in line with like the Yankees. Yeah. I would guess after that slate, but I would prefer like Toronto bats to Yankee bats here.
Yeah, our guy Uncle T pointed out the Blue Jays do have 3 2K guys. Actually, one of them is 2,100. But if you need some cheaper bats at the Blue Jays back of their lineup, definitely a direction you could go. I do prefer the top of it. I think you can afford it today. But Blue Jays and Baltimore both look pretty good here. Next game on the slate, we go to Tampa, who are playing in George Steinbrenner Field, which must be a little bit odd, playing in a stadium named after your rival's owner. Is what it is for Tampa Bay. I'm sure you've seen, Schlong, the park that Steinbrenner Field that Tampa plays in. People that do the park factor stuff, this is like a AAA park. It does look like this is going to play in the long term as a very hitter-friendly park. So far, it has not, right? We've seen low-scoring games, these first 2 games with Colorado and Tampa Bay. Probably has something to do with the 2 offenses here. We know how bad Colorado is at everything. It's the same old story for them. A lot of strikeouts projected in their lineups. I've played Pepio against them. I played who pitched yesterday? Can't even recall already. But anyway, pitchers against the Rockies when the Rockies are on the road are always going to be in play. I think that's the case with Taj Bradley here. Who
Zach Littell yesterday.
Yeah, Zach Littell. Yep, used him yesterday. He was decent. But yeah, Bradley, I do think you can make a pretty strong argument for him as the top point per dollar pitcher on this slate. And I do think ownership is going to reflect that. I think we'll see Bradley 40%, 50% owned, which, I think is justified. Bradley got up to, I think 100 pitches in spring training, something like that. So he should be good to go here. I do think his upside is very high. The only thing really going against him in my eyes, Shalong, is the ownership. It does make me a little bit nervous. First start of the year, playing into heavy ownership. Curious where you ended up on Bradley. And then Feltner, I think, is a decent play here at 7,100. Looks like the field not really on him, seeing him projected between 5 and 10% ownership at 7,100. I think he makes some sense. He's a decent pitcher, especially when you get him outside of Coors Field. And I'm looking at this Tampa Bay lineup, man, and it is not that scary. I mean, if you go past the first three hitters, Yandy Diaz, Jake Mangum, and Brandon Lowe, who honestly aren't that scary to begin with, then you get, their back six is Jonathan Aranda, Taylor Walls, Cameron Misner, Jose Caballero, Ben Rortvedt, and Johnny DeLuca. It's kind of a sorry state for the Rays right now. Enough of a sorry lineup, I think, to look at a low-owned Feltner here at 7,100, despite a park that we do think is going to be friendly to hitting overall. So yeah, curious where you ended up with Rays and Rockies. I could see a lot of different ways one can reasonably play this game.
Yeah, I think Bradley's my top overall pitcher of the slate. Just straight up. With DeGrom's pitch count concerns, I think Bradley takes the top spot for me. Gonna have a decent amount of him. He's going to throw a ton of pitches, likely get a ton of strikeouts. I do agree with you with this being a hitter's park in the long term. It's just, it's kind of hard to realize when you have the Rockies and, as you said, I agree with you on Tampa Bay that it's a really low power lineup. There's not tons of guys who can deal a lot of damage here to really take advantage of a smaller park. So, it is warm. It's typical Florida weather. So, I struggle with the Tampa Bay bats just because I'm not a huge believer in Feltner, and I love stacking against him because he does give up stolen bases. But you could also see, it would not surprise me if he did well at super low ownership. I would prefer him to I don't know, a Stroman or Savale.
Yep.
He's more of a deep tournament play for me, but he's definitely going to make my 150 today. So I'm likely going to be on slightly over on him and probably around the field on Tampa Bay bats. They're just so cheap. It's a really nice, small stack. I would prefer them as 3-mans as opposed to 5-mans here to really fit in. I don't know, Taj Bradley, another high-end pitcher and a high-end stack, you get some of these bats for 2K. I'm not a huge believer in Aranda, but 2.5K for him, really, for example, opens up a lot on the rest of your team. So yeah, don't mind it.
Any interest in the Rockies hitters here against the chalk Taj Bradley? The top half of this lineup, the first 5, Doyle, Tovar, McMahon. You got a $2,500 power hitting catcher in Goodman, and then Toglia. These guys aren't great hitters, but the lineup to me falls off a lot after the first 5. We've got what we think is a hitter's park. We know Taj Bradley's going to be chalk. We also know Taj Bradley, he's not that great, right? He's certainly not a pitcher that is immune to getting blown up. So when you weigh it all together, I do think this Rocky stack makes some sense as a contrarian option against a pitcher we know is going to be super, super popular. So I'm not sure if I'll get there for sure, but I I do think the Rockies make sense as a contrarian stack. Sounds like you're not leaning that way, though.
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be eliminating them for my 150, but they're not like a stack I'm going to be going hard after. They just seem a little expensive to me outside of Coors. I do think this will play as a hitter's park, though. So, if you want them, they're going to be sub 1% against Bradley here.
Yeah.
And, Bradley is a guy that you can attack, and he's also a guy that you also want to pitch. Like, he's a high upside guy, but, if it goes bad, he's going to be walking a ton of guys, and then all it takes is one home run. So
he does give up home runs, and we do think this is going to be a pretty good home run park. So I think the Rockies make some sense. I probably will end up going to them on one of my 3 DraftKings teams, the Rockies 5-man 1 through 5. I think they've got a much better chance than the ownership would indicate on ending up on the winner, especially knowing they're going up against a super popular pitcher. Obviously, Taj Bradley, a good play, especially if you don't mind playing, or if people don't mind playing into the ownership. But he is going to be really popular. I imagine he's the number 1 arm, especially point per dollar for most people today. So that's my concern with Bradley, just how chalky he's going to be. I don't think he's a sure thing, even against the Rockies. But cash games, he would be the first guy in, Taj Bradley for me. So he is very strong play today. But like I said, I am going to the Rockies. Any bats on Tampa that you particularly like? Seems to talk about Aranda in the 4 hole.
Like the lefties, Brandon Lowe. I think he's reasonably priced here. I mentioned you could run on Feltner, so kind of some of these faster guys at the bottom of the order. I don't mind. They're all super cheap. I think my 2 favorites would be Lowe and Aranda.
I agree with you. I think those are the 2 top Tampa bats. All right, we'll keep it moving. We go to Cincinnati for the Giants and the Reds. Pitchers umpire here, Manny Gonzalez behind the plate. And wind blowing in this one as well. Pretty strong wind in from right center field. Should make this park, Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, normally one of the best hitters parks in baseball. Should play, I believe, fairly neutral today. We've got Nick Martinez going for the Reds, his 2nd season in Cincinnati. Pitched pretty well last year, and I think might be in for a pretty good season this year as well. He's 6,600, should be stretched out and good to go. I've got a lot of interest in Martinez. I think you can play the other side pitching-wise on this one too. Robbie Ray, who missed most of last year, did return at the end of the season, had a couple bad outings, but had some strong ones as well to finish the season. We know he's a high strikeout guy. And we know the Reds I think the Reds are going to be on a lot of winning GPP lineups this year, but the pitchers against them are also going to be big winners. Obviously not on the same day, but we could see Robbie Ray rack up some strikeouts here. So I do think Robbie Ray, certainly interesting. Looks like he'll come in maybe around 30% ownership. Does feel maybe a little bit high to me, but I do think the upside is there. And I like Nick Martinez quite a bit here. Giants, a decent offense. I just think Martinez is underrated and pretty good price point, or really good price point at 6,600, and looks like low ownership as well. So I like Nick Martinez quite a bit as a contrarian option. I think Ray is a decent play, and then I do think despite the pitcher's weather, the park is good enough where you can certainly look to bats in this one. What are you doing, Bryce, with the Giants and the Reds here?
I kind of agree with you on some of the pitchers here. I think Nick Martinez is a good low-owned option. 6.6K against a San Fran team that I'm not really that worried about. You mentioned the weather. I think the under has been hit a decent amount here. It's not a bad. I don't think the under is necessarily a bad play, so that makes me like Nick Martinez. He will be able to throw a lot of pitches. I think he should have a good leash to start the season. And, if he's going well, they should be able to leave him in. So I'm not going to be going crazy on him or anything, but I think he's a pretty solid contrarian option today. I'm not opposed to playing San Fran bats. They're definitely not a stack that I'm taking out. It's still a home run friendly park, even with the weather. And, I do think that they have some upside bats here. Adames, Helio Ramos, Jung Ho Lee, Chapman would be like my preferred stack if you are playing that side. Going over the Reds, another situation where I kind of like Ray, and I don't mind the bats. Robbie Ray is your classic like high upside, like high downside type of pitcher. If he's going bad, he's gonna be walking people, giving up stolen bases and home runs. If he's going well, if you told me he had, I don't know, 9 or 10 strikeouts today, it wouldn't surprise me. So I think he's more of a tournament play than like a cash game play for me. But I likely want to be over on both sides here. My favorite Cincinnati bats would be the right-handed plays here and Ellie.
Break it up a little bit there, Bryce. I'm not sure if you're still with me or even if it's on my side. So I'll just I'll keep talking here. Hopefully you can hear me, and we'll get Bryce back in there. Sounds like it maybe is on the Bryce side. I'll talk a little bit about Nick Martinez because I do think he's my favorite pitcher today. Once we get to the price and the ownership on Nick Martinez, look what he did at the end of last year in his first season of Cincinnati. Again, we don't want to be game log watchers, but just look at the September 23, 28, 25, 34, and 21 fantasy points in 5 consecutive starts to end the year. And then the Rays, or not the Rays, now I got to switch we'll switch it to solo here. I don't know how. I'm going to keep talking and hope that Hope Bryce comes back. Sorry for the close-up on my ugly mug. But yeah, Martinez, the Reds did pick up a $20 million qualifying offer on Martinez. So showed a lot of faith in him. He looked pretty good in spring, and I do think Martinez could be in for a big outing here. Again, sorry about the graphic here. But kind of hard to talk and look for it at the same time. So I'm just going to keep going. Nick Martinez, one of my favorite pitchers. I do think Ray presents a good play. Someone switched it for me. A good contrarian play with high strikeout upside. There you go, Bryce. You're back. Scrambling.
Sorry, we have some high winds here at the lake.
Yeah.
And lake Wi-Fi isn't the best, but hopefully it'll survive the rest of the show. I agreed. I was able to watch you for a second. I pretty much agreed with everything.
I'm glad you're back. I wasn't looking forward to the 25 minutes.
No, the 30-minute solo show on a Sunday is never particularly fun.
I was going to do it, but I wasn't happy about it. So I'm happy you're back. Briefly there, I do really like Nick Martinez on both sides. Going to get him low owned. I think he's got more upside than people are seeing, and I just kind of believe in him long term, or at least any pitcher can go down. But the current version of Nick Martinez, I think, is very underrated. I think he's much better than a $6,600 pitcher. His price on DraftKings. And we'll get him at, I think, a pretty decent ownership percentage. So in on Nick Martinez. That's the first half of the slate. Let's get to the second half. We go to Miami for the Pirates and the Marlins. Not sure on the roof here if it'll be open or closed. We do know the pitchers, though. Andrew Heaney, lefty for Pittsburgh. He's been around the league a little bit. Going to get the start here. Had a rough spring for sure. He does, of course, get this Marlins lineup, which, man, they do not have much. I'm not really sure they have any good hitters on the squad. So pitchers are always going to be in play against the Marlins. I'm not sure Heaney is the best play today, but I do think at least a little bit of upside. He can get strikeouts when he's on his game. And then Max Meyer, prospect of some note, didn't look great last year, but we see that often with pitchers, and then they kind of improve in year two. I think we could see that from Max Meyer. He's down there at 6,800. Through his last outing, instead of starting, they went to the backfield, so we don't know exactly on the pitch count with Max Meyer, but I think he'll be 80 plus most likely, and gets a Pirates lineup, that I think is one to target. Obviously, some dangerous bats, Reynolds, and I was going to say O'Neal Cruz, but looks like he's out of the lineup for whatever reason. And he would have been the most dangerous bat against Max Meyer. Makes me like him even more. I was in on Meyer even when I thought Cruz was going to be in the lineup. And I like Meyer here. Do we get the quote from manager? You can see it there on the DraftKings app. They said he's been terrific. He's good to go. So I think they want Max Meyer to take a big step forward. Obviously, all teams want that for their players, but I think Meyer's got a reasonable chance to actually do it. And I like him quite a bit here at home against Pittsburgh at 6,800. Going to be a cheap pitching day for me, Bryce, off teams with, the Martinez-Meyer combo, Feltner, plenty of money left to spend on bats, which is my favorite way to play MLB DFS. So I'm in on Meyer, not so much Heaney, and I know the Marlins are cheap, but I still don't really want to go to their hitters today. What about you, Bryce? What are you doing with Pittsburgh Pirates and Miami Marlins here?
I want to be over pitchers and under bats here. I'm not even sure these stacks are going to make my 150s. I don't think the Marlins will. Maybe it's 3-mans for each team. If you did want to play bats,
you don't need the savings. So
I would much prefer going to the cheap Tampa Bay bats than the cheap Marlins bats. Heaney is a pitcher that does give up power, and another high variance lefty, kind of similar to Robbie Ray, just a worse version of him. But I would rather go cheap at pitcher than bats today in general, and I think there are better cheap bats. I know you mentioned the Nationals. I would even prefer them against Nola as opposed to hitting in Miami here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably be between 5 and 10% on each pitcher, which should be over the field for sure. I don't think either guy will be popular, and I'm not restricting bats from this game, but I think with 10 games on the slate, it's kind of an easy avoid situation.
Yeah, Meyer doesn't look like he's projecting that well or in the props. So maybe I'm a little bit out over my skis on that.
I agree. I agree with you on Meyer. I think I would actually prefer him to Nick Martinez as my cheap pitcher today. That will be super low owned.
I mean, he's cheap. I think he's got talent. Park is good. Matchup is good, right? So he's got a lot going for him. No question about it.
If we did have to choose bats in this game, I think Brian Reynolds would be my favorite Pirate. He has by far the most upside of any bat in this team. And then I would probably choose Dane Myers. He's a pretty well touted prospect for them. If you want a full punt, I think he definitely deserves to be in the pool, trying to fix some one-offs here.
I'm with you there. I think Myers is the top bat for the Marlins, and Reynolds 5,200 in Miami is I think a little bit hard.
He'll be completely unowned. I'm not really playing stacks here, but I don't mind one-offs or mini stacks.
It looks like the field is going to mostly be ignoring this game, both bats wise and pitching wise. So certainly a reasonable approach. I'm going to stick with my Max Meyer love, but we'll see. We'll see how he looks here on his first start of the year. We'll keep it moving. Angels and the White Sox up next. I love how they some of these crappy teams like Pitt, Miami, Angels, White Sox. Seems like they kind of paired them up to start the year. The Angels have not looked good so far. No surprise there. We do have two very mediocre pitchers going. Jack Kohanowitz for the Angels and Davis Martin for the White Sox. I don't think either pitcher is going to be, none of these pitchers are going to be popular. I assume the stacks won't be either. Could be wrong about that, but I assume not. I will say it looks like the wind is going to kind of shift in the middle of this game, where maybe blowing in to begin and then blowing out to left field as the game progresses. I like to use a site called Ballpark Pal to look at some of the weather factors. And they like this game quite a bit, especially for home runs. Refreshing now they've still got it as a very strong home run park today, and one of the best parks overall for hitters, despite the crosswinds. So curious if you ended up on any of these stacks, Bryce. Kind of a hard game to know what to do with. Two mediocre pitchers, but two bad lineups too. What are you doing with the Angels and the White Sox?
I like hitters in this game. I kind of X'd out the pitchers.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with you on the hitting side, and I think they're going to go completely under the radar. I think the Angels will likely be one of my bigger buys. I think this lineup has a little more upside than people give it credit for, and they've shown. And they've been popular and kind of let people down the first couple days. People have such a short memory. I still think it's a pretty solid spot for them on the road against the White Sox. Not a believer in either pitcher.
All right, I think we lost Bryce for the moment once again, so we'll go solo mode on Angels and White Sox till we get the schlong back. Yeah, I'm with him on the pitchers. Not going to either pitcher here, but the stacks I think make for some more sense. Both of these stacks, I think Bryce was talking about some Angels love, which makes sense to me, especially that top half of the Angels lineup looks pretty good. Johnny, welcome. See you hopped in the pre-booth there, saving Bryce.
I saved you the first time with the graphic.
Okay, I knew someone
figure
did
that out,
yeah, sure.
and I was like, well, let me just stay here in case Bryce's internet fails him again, so DC doesn't have to be alone and talk to himself. Well, you're not talking to yourself, but it kind of feels that way when you're just talking on StreamYard by yourself. So yeah, I figured I'd come and help out a little bit. I've been playing baseball every day. So yesterday was the old Yankees stacks for the win, and a little bit of I needed who did I need? I had a Miami Marlins one-off cheapie that I needed DC, and that game went into extras. It was like the last game that ended. And I forget, I had the third baseman. I can't remember his name, but he was cheap. And he got like on the Marlins. Wagman, maybe was his name?
Yeah, Wagaman. Yep.
Wagaman. Yeah. I needed him. And he got like 2 chances in extra innings, but just couldn't do anything for me. Got up with the bases loaded and got out on that last out. But there's Schlong. I think he's back now. Schlong, you with us?
Thanks for hopping in there. Shouldn't be an issue the rest of the season. It should be my only weekend up here. But those Marlins one-offs haven't been that bad.
JC, you get to stick around these last 15 minutes?
Yeah, I can stick around for the last couple minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, JC. Well, I guess we'll stick with you. What are you doing with the Angels and the White Sox here? Any love?
I am just trying to stay away from Angels and White Sox hitters as much as I possibly can. Angels are a little tempting. I'm not going to lie. They failed us miserably. I think it was the opening day. I think they were super popular that day. Everyone was on them. I fell into it too. I was on them too, and they didn't do shit. So I was like, all right, screw this team. I'm not playing them the next couple days. The only 2 that interest me would be Trout and the cheap catcher, because if you need a punt catcher, I got no issues with it. He's 2,100, and then Trout obviously, at any point can kind of go off. And I was kind of with you. I think it was you, DC. You might have said it in the Discord. It's like, man, we got to play Trout before he gets injured. And it's like, yeah, I want to catch a couple Trout bombs before, he goes on the, IR or IL, whatever they freaking call it in baseball. So I think a mini stack is probably where I'm at. Honestly, for pitching, I'm with you on like the Felter. I like the Felter Bradley stack. I like Martinez as a cheap guy. I was looking at the Angels pitcher. I just think I like those other guys better, but I like cheap pitchers today for sure. I mean, I only play 2 to 3 lineups, so I'm gonna kind of mix them that way. But both these teams have been so bad. I could see playing the Angels pitcher if you wanted to, get a little weird. If you're playing MME and stuff like that, I'd have a sprinkle because of how bad these teams are.
Yeah. Kohanowitz, his strikeout rates are so low. I mean, last year he was at 3. This almost hard to believe. 3.44 over 65 innings. That's like the lowest mark in all of Major League Baseball. And then in spring training, he actually threw 19 innings, which is about as many as anybody threw. And it was at 4.6.
DC, the only thing I'll say is look at what he's done against this team. It's like he's averaging through two starts, averaged 21 fantasy points. He had 2 good games in a row, only gave up 1 earned, and it was a home run on 8 hits in 2 games. 14 innings pitched. So I don't know how stretched out he is. I don't know any. I don't know if you know that type of stuff.
He should be. If a pitcher that threw 19 innings in spring is going to be good to go. So that's not going to be an issue. But I mean, I just can't do it with the strikeout rate as low as
I get it.
But he's 6,500, and this White Sox team is awful. So I don't think he's the worst play in the world. I do prefer him over Martin, and I do like the Angels stack here, Bryce. Sounds like you might be back on the Angels here. Is that correct? I
just think it might be a flop lag type of spot for them. It's not like I'm super excited about the team as a whole, but they're a team I'm willing to take a shot on again.
Yeah, 100%. We're moving on to the last 3 games on the slate. We got big crew watching this morning. So hit the like button if you haven't yet done so. We do appreciate that. And, of course, we've got everything you need for MLB and everything else over on runpuresports.com. You can use promo code. What do we have? RPS 15, I believe, should be active at the moment if you do want to join us. Cheat sheets from me Monday through Friday, projections, core plays, everything you need to get off to a good start here in the MLB season and, of course, every other DFS sport as well. So RPS 15 to get over with the winning crew over at runpuresports.com. All right, last 3 games to talk about. Cleveland and the Kansas City Royals up first. This one in Kauffman Stadium. Going to be another nice or relatively nice day for hitting. 50 degrees, but some winds blowing out to right center field. Not as good as the last couple, but we could see runs in KC. Again, not a great park for home runs, but a good park for hitting otherwise. We've got 2 righties on the hill. Tanner Bybee going for the Guardians. Michael Wacha for the Kansas City Royals. I think we'll see somewhat modest ownership on this game all the way around. Bryce, we'll start with you. What are you doing with Royals and Guardians here?
I think this is one of my favorite games for pitching. Like if you want to get a little contrarian, like DeGrom's on a pitch count. Like it's not like Taj Bradley's like an absolute world beater, 60% of the time or whatever. He's going to be super owned today.
We're talking about Guardians Royals?
Yeah, I'm saying like Bybee and Wacha are good.
Gotcha.
I think good pivots off of some of like the chalkier pitchers here. It's a low total. Not like very scared of either lineup. And once you get past like the best hitters and, Jose Ramirez is out today for the Guardians, which definitely helps Wacha's case. I think they have upside and, we've been pretty high on some bats so far. So, I had to get into some of these pitchers, but I think they'll come in as probably my 3rd and 4th highest owned pitchers here. I like both of them more than Nola.
Yeah, the prop market certainly likes Wacha relative to the field. Got him as the prop market has him as one of the top point per dollar plays, and he should be lower owned. It does look like the ownership going to be condensed around DeGrom and Taj Bradley, I believe. We'll get to DeGrom here on the last game of the slate, but I do think Wacha makes some sense if you trust the market, which in general we should. JSU, what about you? What are you doing with Cleveland and KC?
Yeah, in my 3 teams, I don't think I'm going to get to this game. I do agree with Bryce. I think the interesting side would be the pitchers. If you're playing multiple teams, I think those 2 guys are both in play. But like I said, for my 3 teams, I kind of want to like spend down and then play Taj. So I just don't think I'm going to get to Tanner Bybee or Michael Wacha. But obviously Jose Ramirez less lineup for Cleveland does help him. And then, KC, the weather's not crazy there. I think it's cold. So I could see playing both those guys. The offenses, the only guy I kind of like from the offenses is Vinny P. Vinny P is definitely a guy who could play. He's got upside, obviously power, and had some success against Bobby too. Not as he doesn't have a ton of bats against him, but I think he's 6 for 8 or something like that against Bobby. So I am at least last year, anyways. I am interested in more of the pitchers, and then Vinny P as a one-off.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I think both these pitchers. This game feels like one that could be low scoring to me with Bybee, Waka, kind of cooler in Kansas City. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a pitcher's duel. I don't know if I'm going to get to either of these guys, but I do think they make a lot of sense today and certainly prefer the pitching to the offenses in this one.
I see Chad talking about Bobby Witt too. He's someone you can always, shortstop with no Trey is kind of weaker. So if you want to spend up, I think he's like, he's in the mix for sure. I mean, me personally, I kind of like Abrams from Washington, Bichette from Toronto a little bit more just on a point per dollar. But I could see playing a Bobby Witt at low ownership.
Yeah, and we're DK partners here at Run Pure Sports, so we're not going to go too heavy into it. But I have no idea why Vinny P is second base, third base eligible. That makes absolutely no sense. And I think he would like.
I laughed, DC. Did you see both first basemen? Did you guys see both first basemen for Philly yesterday, Schwarber and Harper? Or you couldn't play them together because they were just first base, and then Vinny P's second and third today. Yeah. At least they gave Schwarber outfield eligibility.
Who's ever the intern that fat-fingered Vinny P second, third base. I'm sure they'll get on that one. Looks like we've lost Bryce again for the moment. We'll keep going, but Vinny P.
It might not be in the cards for Bryce today. That's all I'm going to say. So
he was upset by Vinny P's position eligibility and decided to peace out early. So that might be it for Bryce. We'll see if he returns. Let's get to these last two games: JSU, Minnesota, and St. Louis. Up first, we've got Bailey Ober going for the Twins. Obviously, a good pitcher. A pitcher who does though have a little bit of a home run issue. Gives up a lot of fly balls. And that could potentially hurt him here. JSU on really good might be extreme, but relative to the slate, a good weather game in St. Louis. Pretty strong winds blowing straight out to center field for Ober versus Payante. Payante not really any good, not a high strikeout pitcher. I have not liked the way that the Twins bats have looked, and I'm kind of hesitant to go there honestly today. I do think the Cardinals bats are a little bit interesting. Specifically, Lars Nootbaar has looked fantastic at the plate. He's been productive, but it even goes beyond that. He's looked really good. We got Bryce back in there. So I like Nootbaar a lot as kind of a one-off, and I don't mind the Cardinals bats in general. I just don't think I can do it with the Twins, even against Payante, who's a pretty good ground ball pitcher. Bryce, we got to get you in here before you potentially leave us again. What are you doing with St. Louis and Minnesota?
I think the first thing to consider here is the weather. It looks kind of bad to start the game, but I do think it plays after a delay, so I would not be worried about pitchers. Don't love either pitcher here, though. Kind of prefer the bat side of the game, and if I did have to choose one, it would be Ober. He's probably going to make my pool, but probably around like 5%. I do agree with you that the Cardinals bats have looked kind of surprisingly good here. Valente is also a guy I like to target on the other side of the game. I do think the Twins still have some upside bats. I needed them day one, and they completely failed me. I had a really good team in high stakes with them. So, I think they've let some people down. Not going to be playing like an absurd amount on either. I'll probably be under on this game as a whole, even considering a pretty good run total here.
Makes sense. What about you, JSU? What are you doing with Minnesota and St. Louis?
Yeah, I think St. Louis is the more interesting side. I will say just keep an eye with the weather and stuff like that. But I'm with you. I think they're a good team. You can stack up. I can't do it with your Twins, DC.
I'm not playing with it.
I tried it day one. It didn't work out. I'm hanging on the sidelines with the Twins for a little bit here, and they're one of those teams though. Like they will just pop off for a massive score one of these days, and we'll be like, oh crap, and then everyone's gonna get on the Twins, and they're gonna fail like 4 days in a row, and we're gonna be like, why did we do this? So, if you're someone who likes Max Payne and you just want to stack the Twins every day, I get it. One of these days they will go nuts, but I'm staying away. I think St. Louis is the better side for offense. I think for pitching, I'm probably not on either of these guys, so I'm probably just staying away from the pitching here in general. But St. Louis, I'd be fine with stacking up here, taking some bats.
Yeah, makes sense. One more game to talk about. We do got to get out on time today with the slate locking in 40 minutes here. So we got to make our own lineups, get core plays, all that stuff. But first, we'll talk about, of course, Boston and the Texas Rangers. Jacob deGrom making not his return. He did pitch a little bit at the end of last season, but hoping, or the Rangers are, for a full season from deGrom. We know what he can do when he is healthy. It looks like he's going to be not quite the same completely dominant version of deGrom that we saw kind of in his prime. It seems like he's probably wisely, frankly, scaled back the velocity a little bit to try to have more longevity. He has not thrown many innings over the last few seasons. He is $9K, which is certainly a nice price point for him. I think you could make the case either way with deGrom. And then Richard Dick Fitz pitching for the Boston Red Sox. We know he's mentally tough if he got through childhood with the name Richard Fitz. So you don't have to worry about that. But in terms of the talent level, I think more in question. Bryce, we'll start with you again. What are you doing with Boston and Texas?
I'm not playing Boston bats against deGrom. I'm also not playing tons of deGrom. I do prefer him on DraftKings to FanDuel. Reduced pitch count, he can rack up a ton of Ks in 5 efficient innings and get there. But I think he's much less likely to get there on FanDuel. I think I have double what I have DraftKings compared to FanDuel on him, but I'm not incredibly high just because I do think the upside is capped somewhat at a pretty restrictive pitch count today of 75. Texas bats against Dick Fitz, sign me up for them. They do have some high upside bats here. Like the top 5 in this team are super strong, and I think they make for a pretty good 5-man stack here that shouldn't be overowned.
I like it. I like the Texas call. If you're a live betting type, these Devers strikeout live props have not adjusted yet, and the dude is going down like it looks like he looks like us up there, just like literally can't hit the baseball. I mean, just kind of average fastballs right past him. So I'm gonna stick with that. I said on day one, I'm not playing Devers until he shows me something, and it certainly has not happened yet. What is it? I don't know how many strikeouts he has. It's a lot through this.
It's like 10 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, he's,
10 through 3 games. It's like a baseball record. It's like the opposite of the Yankees hitting home runs yesterday.
Yeah, I posted in Discord on opening day after seeing his first 2 at bats and knowing he's playing hurt, and didn't start betting these live strikeout props. My DFS teams haven't been the best, but the Devers K props have saved me at least a little bit. Yeah, JSU, what are you doing here? Boston and Texas, kind of an interesting.
Is it he's definitely playing hurt, DC? Is that like the definite thing, or is he a little also sad that he is not playing third base?
He also had shoulder inflammation to end last season, and his production fell off. Didn't play this spring. Is upset about being moved off his position. They said he's going to only DH. There's a lot going on with Devers, and then you see it on the field, right? And so you add it all together. It's like this guy obviously going to hit a home run now today, but I won't be there for it myself. What are you doing, JSU, Boston, and Texas?
He's someone I'm definitely going to let beat me 1 or 2 days before I jump on with how he's playing right now. So, I'll leave that to them. The young kid, what's his name, Campbell or whatever, the rookie, Steve Boynton was gushing over in Discord a few days ago. He looks like he's kind of legit. Abreu has been swinging a hot bat for Boston. I think if you were looking at a one-off, a weird one-off in tournaments and stuff like that, they're interesting. Both those guys. Red Sox aren't a team I'm going to stack, not against the deGrom, but if you just want weird one-offs, I think those 2 guys are interesting for tournaments. Texas side is definitely a better full-on stack. We don't have a lineup though yet, do we, for Texas?
One team we don't have.
Yeah, it's like okay. So yeah, we'll wait and see that lineup. I wonder if Jonah Heim's going to catch. I like him as a catcher. He's interesting if he's in there, but Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia. I definitely think Texas has some good bats to stack up here.
Absolutely. That is all 10 games. Like I said, we do got to get out of here on time and get to our own lineups, core plays, all that stuff over on Run Pure Sports. Before we do, let's do favorite pitcher and a home run call. I'll go first, give you guys a chance to think about it. For me, favorite pitcher on the day is Mr. Nick Martinez. Going to use him on both sides. He's cheap. I think he's going to have a strong game here against the Giants. Cheap, low owned, and I think could pitch well. So Nick Martinez is the guy for me. Home run call. Talked to him about him on the Twins Cardinals discussion, but I'm going with Mr. Nootbaar. I really like how he's looked. I think he gets one off of Bailey Ober and the Twins. Bryce looks like he may be frozen, so JSU will go to you. Your favorite pitcher, and give us a home run call today.
First of all, that's a sign with Bryce. They didn't want to even hear his home run call. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but maybe he'll drop it in the Run Pure Sports Discord. I'm going to go with, for the pitcher, I'm just going to go with the pitching stack. I'm going to go with the Tampa, Colorado pitching stack, Bradley and Falter here for my DK lineup. I like that for my main team. I do like Nick Martinez as well. So if you'd rather not do the stack, I definitely think he's the other guy I'm going to be high on. For hitter, I actually just bet him on DK. He's plus 950, so I like the odds. But Andres Jimenez for Toronto, second baseman, 3,900 on DraftKings, hitting cleanup. Mm-hmm. I like these Toronto bats. I think besides like Washington and Philly, they're like the next team that I want to get bats from. So it's in that order. But 3,900, I am heavy on him at second base. Not the greatest position either. I think second base, and I think he's one of the better options for the price tag.
Love it. And that'll do it for this show. Appreciate all you guys watching, the support. Get over to runpuresports.com. We'll be back tomorrow at the normal time talking baseball. Thanks for JSU saving me from the solo show. So much appreciated, JSU. Good luck to everybody. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow, and we're out of here.